Imagine stepping onto the pitch, right? You're playing against a team that just won their opening match 7-1.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And they're riding an 11-game winning streak.
Mm-hmm.
Now, imagine you are the opposition, but you happen to be the team that hasn't conceded a single goal in your last 10 matches.
That is just wild.
That's right. Something fundamentally has to break.
It really does. I mean, it is the ultimate tactical paradox. You have this overwhelming offensive momentum colliding with, well, an absolute defensive anomaly.
Yeah.
And usually, in international football, those are the matches that just get bogged down in fear. Teams get way too cautious.
The cautious is like the last word you would use for what happened here. Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone.
Glad to be here.
We are taking a hefty stack of sports journalism today. I mean, we've got match reports, tactical previews, post-game analyses from FOX Sports, Sky Sports, Goal.com, Hollywood Bets.
A lot of ground to cover.
Exactly. And we are zeroing in on one of the most thrilling matches of the 2026 FIFA Men's World Cup so far. We are unpacking the massive Group E clash in Toronto Stadium between the four-time World Cup champion Germany and the rising West African powerhouse Ivory Coast.
And the stakes going into this, they were just enormous for both sides.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider the contrasting paths they took just to arrive in Toronto.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the narrative arc of this game, it reads less like a standard match report and more like, I don't know, a 3-act play.
Yeah, a movie script almost.
Right. We've got a 19-year-old prodigy playing absolutely out of his mind. We've got a 29-year-old late-blooming hero coming off the bench, disallowed goals, and a stoppage time winner that finally booked Germany a spot in the knockout stages for the first time since 2014.
Which is a huge relief for them.
Massive. But before we get to that final whistle, we need to really understand the architecture of this clash.
Well, we have to look at the German machine first. Because when a team is on an 11-game winning streak across all competitions, they aren't just beating teams, right? They are imposing their will.
Yeah, totally.
In their tournament opener against Curaçao, they didn't just win. They dismantled them.
7-1, it was ruthless. And reading through the Sky Sports analysis, the focus is entirely on their engine room. You've got Joshua Kimmich anchoring the midfield, and then the creative wizardry of Jamal Musiala and Florian Wirtz.
Yeah, that trio is lethal.
So for anyone who maybe hasn't watched this specific iteration of the German squad, what makes that midfield so terrifying?
It really comes down to a concept called vertical velocity.
Vertical velocity.
Yeah. When Germany recovers the ball, they don't look to pass sideways, just to catch their breath.
Right.
They immediately look for the forward penetrating pass.
Yeah.
And Musiala and Wirtz, they are exceptionally gifted at receiving the ball on the half turn.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning their body is already angled toward the opponent's goal before the ball even reaches them.
Oh, wow. So they don't have to stop and pivot.
Exactly. They eliminate defenders in milliseconds.
So they are a perfectly calibrated offensive machine. But then, look at who they are facing. Ivory Coast came into this game carrying a terrifying record of their own.
Unbelievable record.
They qualified for the 2026 World Cup without losing a single match. And in 10 qualifying matches, they conceded 0 goals.
0. It's crazy.
They scored 25, but gave up absolutely nothing.
It's an astonishing level of structural resilience. And, they proved it wasn't just a fluke against lesser competition, because in their opening game of this tournament, they completely shut out a very dangerous Ecuador team.
Yeah, winning 1-0.
Right, and they snapped Ecuador's 19-match unbeaten streak in the process.
So we hear this cliche of unstoppable force versus immovable object all the time in sports. But practically speaking, I have to wonder how a manager actually prepares to break down a team that hasn't conceded a meaningful goal in, over a dozen games.
It's a puzzle, for sure.
Because my instinct as a casual viewer is that you just try to overwhelm them, right? Send all your fastest players forward and just hammer away until a crack appears.
And see, that is exactly what Amerce Faye, the Ivory Coast coach, wants you to do.
Really?
Yeah. If you try to overwhelm his defense with sheer numbers, you leave yourself exposed on the counter. Faye utilizes a deeply disciplined low-to-mid block strategy.
Okay, let's visualize that for a second. If you're watching this on TV, what does a low-to-mid block actually look like? Are they just packing the penalty box with all 11 players?
No, it's much more sophisticated than that. Imagine the field divided into thirds.
Okay.
Ivory Coast isn't pressing high up near the German goalkeeper, wasting energy chasing the ball around.
Right, they aren't taking that bait.
Exactly. Instead, they drop back and compress the space entirely in the middle and defensive thirds. They form 2 incredibly tight, horizontal banks of players.
Like two walls.
Yeah, usually 4 defenders and 4 midfielders, and they just move in perfect synchronization.
So for a team like Germany, who relies on Musiala and Wirtz finding those little pockets of space to turn, suddenly that space simply doesn't exist.
It's gone. There are bodies everywhere. The passing lanes just disappear. When you try to thread an intricate pass through the middle against a well-drilled low block, you're essentially passing into a thicket of legs.
Sounds incredibly frustrating.
It is. Faye's team maintains compact distances between each player. So if one defender steps up to challenge, another immediately shifts to cover the gap.
It sounds like trying to thread a needle while someone is shaking your arm.
That is a great way to put it.
And the atmosphere in Toronto Stadium only added to the pressure. You had over 43,000 fans under clear skies. A huge portion of that crowd came expecting a German masterclass.
They wanted another 7-goal highlight reel.
Right, but Faye forced them into a grueling, frustrating chess match.
A chess match where the Ivory Coast wasn't just defending either. They were actively setting traps.
Which brings us to the shock of the first half. Because against the run of play, Ivory Coast actually takes the lead.
Yeah, the stadium went dead silent.
30th minute. Franck Kessié, their captain, slots home a right-footed finish off a rebound. It's 1-0. But reading through the Goal.com coverage, they barely talk about Kessié's finish. The entire focus is on the catalyst for the goal.
The 19-year-old Yan Diomande.
Yes, the teenage sensation from RB Leipzig.
The German defenders know exactly who he is from the Bundesliga, but, knowing what he does and actually stopping it, those are two very different problems.
Absolutely. The sources mention he is the target of a massive transfer battle right now, with Liverpool reportedly willing to pay over 100 million euros for him.
Which is a staggering number.
Right. So I'm looking at this scenario. Germany has a roster of seasoned, world-class veterans who have played in Champions League finals, yet a 19-year-old kid is out there dictating the terms of the match. What is the specific mechanism of his play that makes him worth 100 million euros?
Well, what's fascinating here is his chaotic change of pace. The analysts compare him to a prime Luis Diaz. When Diomande receives the ball on the wing, he doesn't just put his head down and sprint in a straight line.
Like a traditional winger might.
Right. Instead, he isolates a defender one-on-one, slows down almost to a walk to draw the defender in, and then bam, explodes with a sudden change of direction.
Wow.
He's operating on a completely different rhythm than the defensive line.
He forces the defender to flat-foot themselves.
Exactly. And once a defender's flat-footed, Diomande's acceleration creates instant separation. I mean, he was so devastatingly effective down the left side that Julian Nagelsmann, the German coach, had to abandon his initial tactical setup midway through the half.
He had to panic adjust.
He did. He took Joshua Kimmich, his captain and central midfield anchor, and shifted him over to the left fullback role just to contain this teenager.
And even with that adjustment, it was Diomande's wicked low cross that caused all the chaos inside the German penalty area, which led to the rebound that Kessié scored.
Yeah, he generated the whole sequence.
So Ivory Coast is up 1-0. For a team like Germany, trailing in a group stage match is a massive systemic shock. Our sources point out this was only the 4th time in their last 36 World Cup matches that they found themselves trailing at halftime.
Yeah, and the psychological weight of that deficit is just immense.
Right.
When you are a footballing superpower, your entire identity is built on control.
You expect to dictate the game.
Right. So trailing to an underdog means your sophisticated game plan is actively failing in front of a global audience.
And the frustration was palpable. I mean, Germany had 8 attempts on goal in that first half, but worse, they endured 2 disallowed goals.
Brutal.
You score, the crowd erupts, the pressure releases, and then the referee blows the whistle. The first was Alexander Pavlovich forcing a corner over the line, but it was called back for a foul on Ivory Coast's goalkeeper, Yahia Fofana.
And Fofana was spectacular, by the way. He earned a 7.6 match rating. He absorbed tremendous aerial pressure and made some critical reaction saves.
And then the second disallowed goal had players literally throwing their hands on their heads. Kai Havertz puts it in the back of the net, but it's chalked off because Jamal Musiala committed a foul in the build-up.
Yeah, that really hurts.
The crowd is furious. The momentum just keeps stuttering.
And that kind of sequence really tests a team's emotional regulation. You can easily spiral into a narrative of, like, the universe is against us today, and start forcing wild shots from 30 yards out.
That brings us to Julian Nagelsmann on the sidelines. FOX Sports painted this vivid picture of him pacing around in an oversized black tee. He looked more like an underground art gallery owner in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, than a traditional football manager.
Quite the look.
It is. And he's watching his incredibly talented squad just bounce off this titanium wall of an Ivory Coast defense. So in the 60th minute, he makes a highly consequential triple substitution.
A massive gamble for a manager in that spot. He pulls off Jamal Musiala, who is arguably one of the most creative and technically gifted players on the planet, and he brings on Deniz Undav alongside Nadim Amiri.
Okay, I really struggled with this when I was reading the reports, because if I am a coach and I am trailing in a crucial World Cup match, my instinct is to keep my most brilliant creative lockpick on the pitch at all costs.
Naturally, yeah.
But Nagelsmann hooks him. Why take off Musiala for a player like Undav, who is essentially his polar opposite?
To understand that, we really have to look at the concept of a false nine. Both Musiala and Kai Havertz operate best when they can drop deep into the midfield.
Okay.
The goal of a false nine is to trick the opposing central defenders into following them out of the penalty area. And doing that creates a hole in the defensive line for someone else to run into.
So they act as bait.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
the bait only works if the fish bite.
Right.
Ivory Coast central defenders, Emmanuel Agbadou and Evan Ndika, they were incredibly disciplined. They flat out refused to be pulled out of position. They just held their ground in that low block.
So they didn't care that Musiala was dropping deep.
Not at all. So Musiala was dropping back, getting the ball, and finding himself staring at a perfectly intact wall of defenders with nowhere to pass.
So the lockpick is useless if there's no keyhole to put it in?
That's spot on. Which means Nagelsmann realized he needed a battering ram instead. Deniz Undav is not a false nine. He is a traditional predatory poacher.
He likes the dirty work.
Yeah, he operates in tight, chaotic spaces inside the penalty box. He doesn't want to drop deep into midfield. He wants to pin his body against the center backs and physically fight for the space.
And his backstory is fascinating. He's 29 years old, a true late bloomer who didn't make his senior international debut until he was 27.
Which is ancient in football years.
Right. Just a couple of seasons ago, he was struggling in the English Premier League, scoring a very modest 5 goals in 22 appearances for Brighton.
His trajectory completely defies the modern obsession with teenage prodigies. He didn't come through an elite academy system with a €100 million price tag on his head.
He really had to grind his way up. And he arrived at this tournament off a massive 25-goal season for Stuttgart. For his country, his form has been lethal, like 9 goals in his last 11 games. It's almost like a band bringing out an unknown session musician who totally steals the show from the famous lead singer.
That's a great analogy. Against tired Ivorian legs, that direct physical bruising threat was the absolute perfect countermeasure. Undav doesn't need a beautiful passing sequence to score. He just needs a fraction of a second of hesitation from a tired defender.
And the payoff validates the gamble completely. In the 68th minute, just 8 minutes after coming on, Undav levels the score. Nadim Amiri, another one of those substitutes, whips in a dangerous cross from the right wing.
A beautiful ball.
Undav holds his ground in the box and controls it with a stunning volleyed finish. 1-1.
And the psychological shift in the stadium at that moment was seismic. Ivory Coast had defended flawlessly for over a dozen international matches, and suddenly the dam was breached.
But a poacher like Undav is useless if he doesn't get the ball in the penalty box, right? Somebody actually has to drag the play through that exhausted, congested midfield to set him up. And reading the post-match player ratings, the consensus points squarely to Felix Nagbash.
Yes, he was the true orchestrator of the endgame.
He pulled incredibly high match ratings, landing between a 7.4 and a 7.9. The analysts were comparing him to a young Michael Ballack. Now, for anyone who follows German football, being compared to Ballack is essentially being elevated to royalty.
Oh, absolutely. It doesn't get much higher than that.
What is it about Mecca's performance that drew that specific comparison?
Well, Michael Ballack was famous for combining an imposing physical presence with elite technical dribbling. And that is a very rare hybrid.
Usually you're one or the other.
Right. Usually a player is either a physical destroyer or a nimble creator. But Mecca was both. When the clock ticked past the 90th minute and everyone's legs were filled with lactic acid, Mecca was still demanding the ball.
He was able to carry it through the pressure rather than just safely passing it around the perimeter.
Yeah, because against a low block, simply passing the ball from left to right doesn't disrupt the defense at all.
They just slide over.
Exactly. Someone has to commit to driving the ball straight at the defenders, forcing them to step out of their assigned zones to make a tackle. Mecca consistently break the lines with his dribbling.
And that sheer physical will culminated in the dying seconds. We are in the 94th minute, deep into stoppage time. Nemeka threads a perfectly weighted pass through the chaotic defense. Umdov receives it on the turn, swivels, and fires it past Fofana. 2-1, Germany.
Oh, the heartbreak for the Ivorian players. Falling to the turf as that ball hit the net, it's just hard to overstate. To execute a defensive masterclass for 93 minutes against a footballing giant, only to lose it in the final seconds.
There really is a psychological warfare aspect to playing Germany in these tournaments. Gary Neville on the ITV broadcast summed it up perfectly. He said, "They've ruined my life on multiple occasions. They stuck at it, persistence, resilience, and they got there in the end. It's so Germany." It's so Germany. Yeah. That phrase encapsulates decades of tournament history. There is just this aura of inevitability that surrounds them in the dying moments of big games.
But that aura makes me question the comments from the other side. Because after the match, the Ivory Coast coach, Amos Faye, said his team suffered from a lack of experience. He mentioned they were hesitant in front of the net during a few late counterattacks that could have won them the game.
Right.
I have to push back on that framing a little. Is experience just a polite coach-speak way of saying Germany got lucky at the very end and his team choked? Or is there an actual, tangible, neuroscientific difference in how a four-time World Cup champion handles the 94th minute compared to an emerging team? If we connect this to the bigger picture of high-pressure performance, it is absolutely a tangible difference. It's not just luck. In the 94th minute of a tied World Cup match, your heart rate is maxed out, your lungs are burning, and the stadium noise is deafening.
It's pure chaos.
Total chaos. And the human brain naturally shifts into a fight-or-flight survival mode. You just want to clear the ball away and relieve the pressure.
So you stop playing the system and start playing the clock.
Exactly. But a team with Germany's institutional pedigree, even if the specific players on the pitch haven't won a World Cup themselves, carries a cultural muscle memory.
Oh, that's interesting.
They don't succumb to the panic. They continue to run their intricate passing patterns. They expect that if they execute their system, the goal will come.
They trust the geometry of the game more than their own anxiety.
Yes, beautifully said. Meanwhile, for an emerging team trying to make history, the enormity of the moment can cause what we call micro-hesitations.
Like second-guessing a pass.
Right. A split-second delay in taking a shot because you want to make absolutely sure it's perfect. Or a slightly misplaced pass because you rushed the delivery. That tiny fraction of a second is the experience. Faye is mourning. It is literally the difference between clearing the lines and conceding a stoppage time winner.
Wow, that reframes the entire ending. It wasn't just luck then, it was emotional endurance. And yet, Ivory Coast's fight was undeniably spectacular. I mean, they pushed a titan of the sport to the absolute brink, and their destiny in this tournament is still entirely in their own hands.
That's the beauty of the group stage.
They were sitting on 3 points, and they have a massive final group stage match against Curacao.
And their defensive organization alone makes them a threat to advance deep into this tournament. If they can process this heartbreak and apply the lessons Faye is talking about, they are a nightmare matchup for anyone.
So bringing all of these tactical notes and match reports together, what does this actually mean for you listening right now? On a tournament level, the immediate stakes are settled. Germany officially wins Group E with 6 points. They are heading to the round of 32.
Which is a massive sigh of relief for a nation that suffered really embarrassing group stage exits in the 2018 and 2022 World Cups. The ghost of those failures is at least temporarily put to rest.
And Ivory Coast remains highly dangerous, knowing they absolutely belong on this stage. But taking a step back from the football pitch, I think this match serves as a brilliant masterclass for how we approach our own challenges.
Yeah, I agree.
It's about the deep value of patience and the power of utilizing your bench-like, your depth of skills.
It proves that your initial, most sophisticated plan will not always survive contact with a resilient obstacle. Sometimes you just have to be willing to take off your most creative asset and bring on a battering ram.
Right. Just like Denis Ndov. You don't have to be the teenage prodigy to be the person who ultimately saves the day. You don't have to have it all figured out at 19, commanding a €100 million valuation.
Definitely not. Ndov's trajectory is proof that quiet persistence can completely rewrite your narrative, even when the broader industry has seemingly written you off as a mid-tier talent.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to chew on this week. In a modern culture that is totally obsessed with identifying the next 19-year-old lightning bolt prodigy, we spend vast amounts of energy searching for raw, unpolished potential.
We love the early peak.
We celebrate it. But as you navigate your own tactical chess matches, is it possible that the ultimate difference maker, the one who actually breaks the deadlock when the pressure is highest, is the late blooming 29-year-old? The person who has endured failure, who has sat on the bench, and who has simply learned the immense power of waiting for the absolute perfect moment to strike.
There is profound disruptive power in the slow burn of experience.
Definitely something to mull over. Thank you so much for joining us as we unpack the chaos, the geometry, and the strategy of the 2026 World Cup. Keep asking questions, keep looking past the surface data, and keep seeking out those surprising aha moments in your own learning journey. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.